about 5 years old, and all of my dolls had been white, and I didn't think anything of it. And all of a sudden, one Christmas, baby Rita showed up. Baby Rita was about 2 feet tall, and she walked. And she looked so beautiful. She had beautifully bright colored clothes. She had long hair, and she looked like me. And it was the first time that I felt that my doll actually looked like me. And Rita and I went everywhere. And I was just so proud of Rita. Today, if you come to my office, you won't find baby Rita, but you will find this little girl who's sitting in a chair, a pink chair, and the chair says, yes, she can. And I keep her there to remind me of how far I've come, and to remind me of how important it is to see a reflection, and how important it is to know that if we continue to work together, if we face what we know can be corrected, and as a community and a society, we actually correct it, we can make Yes We Can real for all little girls, no matter what shade they are, and frankly, everyone.
I came here to the U.S. when I was about 6 years old, and I grew up mostly in the suburbs of Los Angeles. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, watched a lot of TV, a lot of movies, and I loved it, and I wanted to be a part of that world. There were very few people of color, specifically people of Asian descent, in those fields that I saw. But one of the characters that I thought, or one of the actors, performers that really inspired me was George Takei in Star Trek. He played Sulu, who drove the ship in space. He was important. He was an important part of a diverse team of people and aliens driving through space, and he wasn't stereotypical. He was smart. He didn't really have an accent. He was human. He was a multi-dimensional character. I was introduced to a theater company called East West Players. My stage manager said they were looking for understudies for an all-Asian version of a chorus line. And I thought, that's cool. An all-Asian version of anything is really cool. And I thought, I need to try this. So I auditioned and I got cast. And the experience was just eye-opening in the fact that non-traditional casting was available, and that they were really trying to showcase Asian American actors and creatives saying, hey, we can be a part of this community in several ways, and we can have a place at the table, which I thought was awesome. I was lucky in the sense that I had a couple of those experiences that showed me that I could be a part of the entertainment community as myself. That's what I do now. I hope to continue to create work that provides a place for people who are underrepresented and need a voice.
Watching programs like The Electric Company, Sesame Street, and even Charlie Brown. What was interesting, though, is that the portrayal of black men or black boys, they didn't have prominent roles. They were there, but only and often as a support. It wasn't until I saw Sidney Poitier in To Sir With Love that I saw a black lead character. In visual arts, the representation has been very hard to find. Even today, it's hard to find. Ultimately, representation is very important. Seeing some of these people inform me of some choices. Seeing black people in college, like in a different world, influenced me to want to go to college. Seeing Flip Wilson show and seeing black talent and black excellence all influenced my life as a musician.
The first time that I really saw people that looked like me was when I was about 7 or 8 years old, when I went to go see Miss Saigon on Broadway. Seeing people that looked like me, I don't think really registered entirely, but seeing them made me realize that I could do what those people could do. They looked like me and they were accepted, and it was okay.
Many people know the opera Madame Butterfly and the stage remake Miss Saigon. Both of those works tell the story about an Asian girl abandoned by a Western lover, and in the end of both works, the Asian girl kills herself in despair. Well, I'm not that kind of an Asian girl, so I never saw myself represented by either of those works. But then in 1990, I saw a production of M. Butterfly by David Henry Hwang, an Asian playwright. A play by someone who was Asian was groundbreaking enough, but then I saw the play, and I remember feeling excited by the retelling because the Asian character, played by A. Mappa and by B.D. Wong before that, was not portrayed as a helpless lotus blossom. And I loved how the play, in casting a man in the role of the title character, forced audiences to think about Western stereotypes about how Asian men and how Asian women should behave. Now, 3 decades later, I look back and I wish that I could have seen a story about a strong Asian woman in the title role, one who didn't have to be a man in order to have agency and strength. Since then, though, I've been happy to see strong Asian women on the small screen. Lucy Liu and Ally McBeal, and as one of the titular Charlie's Angels, Ming-Na Wen in ER, and as a kick-ass Agent May on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Sandra Oh on Grey's Anatomy. For me, though, M. Butterfly played an important part in knocking down the stereotype of the self-sacrificing and meek Asian girl, and I think that's why I've never forgotten the experience of seeing it on stage.
I was lucky enough to grow up in a time period where shows like The Cosby Show, Different World, later on Martin, shows like that were popular. But I don't think I necessarily recognized myself in them. The first time I had a lightning bolt moment was when I saw Ragtime on Broadway, and that was my first legitimate, actually on Broadway in New York City show. Lucky me. And as soon as the Harlem Ensemble came on stage, they just danced on in this like huge burst of color and life and energy. I thought, wow, like that's what these people do for their job. That's how they make their living. And as soon as I saw them, that was it. I knew that's what I want to be doing. They look like they're having so much fun. And it was a real turning point for me. Theater became a huge part of my life after seeing that. I thought that's something that I could do. And it's not just something white people do, you know? And, you know, since that moment, my life took a turn, and I really credit it for how I became a performer.
Ugly Betty was on ABC, but originally it was under Betty La Fea in Colombia. That's where it originated. And so ABC picked it up and they did a US version, and they ended up casting a Latinx actress. And, you know, the actress, America, she really, I felt really represented. You know, Hispanics are, you know, Latinx were wholesome, were dark eyes, dark hair, you know, were very lovable. And it was just really inspirational. I remember that first episode, that first season, running to my mother and saying, Mommy, look, there's like a una hispana on television, you know. I'm like, Mommy, I'm moving to LA and I'm going to be cast as her brother or her uncle or whatever. And she's like, ay, hijo, tú estás loco. And so I said, but I can now, you know. And as a young actor, you're just like, you know, a Hispanic actor in a leading role on a primetime show for a major network, you know, was just historical. I mean, inspirational. I was floored. I was really excited. And, you know, the role Betty Juarez, you know, she had all these insecurities, and I think a lot of people, not just Hispanics and Latinx, you know, connected with, and the show did really well. And so for me, I definitely felt it was, you know, a positive step towards representing us authentically, more authentically, you know, on television. So.
The first time I saw myself represented in the arts was Grease. Annette Charles Cardona played Cha-Cha de Gregorio, and she came onto the dance floor and danced with John Travolta, Danny Zuko, and just stole that show. That was probably the first time. I remember rooting for Sandy, but I loved her confidence. I loved that she was strong. I felt proud seeing her up there. And I was lucky enough to be her student years later. And one of the things she always taught me was to fight for the roles that I wanted, even if others didn't see me in that role. Convince them that I was capable of performing that role.
Growing up black and gay, I never imagined that someone like me could run for Congress, let alone win. And in fact, in the 244-year history of the United States, there's never been an openly gay black member of Congress. Had I been able to see someone like myself in the halls of power, specifically in Congress, it would have been direct evidence of the fact that things really do get better. It would have given me hope that there was a place for me in a world filled with so much injustice. It was around the age of 24 years old that I saw a show called Noah's Ark at the encouragement of some of my friends. And for the first time, I saw openly gay black men in loving relationships like I had never imagined. That show gave me the confidence to accept who I am and to live an authentic life. It's what helped me come out to my friends and to my family. And then, years later, commence a history-making campaign for United States Congress, such that now I can provide the representation for millions of other people that I did not have when I was growing up. So there is great power in representation, and I am a living testament to that reality.
I'm a child of the late 60s and 70s, so just by saying that, I've already dated myself and you know how old I am. And when I was growing up, I was a huge reader. I mean, I read books all of the time, but I was also a major television fan. And in fact, I served as my family's resident TV guide. I mean, there was nothing that came on all 3 channels that we had back then that I didn't know about. And so my family would ask me what we should watch, and I would be the one to tell them. And I remember sitting around with my family in the evenings and watching music shows in particular. And on Sunday nights, we watched The Ed Sullivan Show. And that's when you would get to see groups like Diana Ross and the Supremes, or the Jackson 5 were on there. And I remember back then, this happened all over in the United States. People would call each other and say, hey, did you hear so-and-so and so-and-so is going to be on Ed Sullivan on Sunday night? You should tune in and watch it. And everybody did. But the moment that stands out the most for me, when I saw myself reflected, was when I saw Diane Carroll on her TV show, Julia. And the only word that I can use to describe how I felt when I saw that was happy. I mean, this was a woman who looked like the women in my family. This was a woman who had a son, a child, who looked like my brother. This was a woman who was a professional. And seeing yourself reflected on television in the arts is what allows children to dream about who they are, but more importantly about who they can be. And I remember at the time that there was some controversy around the show because there were several people that said that it didn't accurately represent the African American experience. And I have to say that I disagree, because while Black people have a shared history, which I fully embrace, we also have a range of experiences. And it's the reflection of those experiences which allows people to validate their lives. And it allows others to understand who you are and where you come from. And it allows all of us to connect.